The construction industry is getting disrupted right now, and some of you are going to go the way of Blockbuster if you're not careful. This is the Construction Leading Edge podcast from ConstructionLeadingEdge.com and ConstructionBusinessAccelerator.com. My name is Todd DeWalt. It's my job to help you eliminate chaos and maximize revenue in your business. This podcast episode is all about how the construction industry is being disrupted right now. It's being disrupted in a couple of different ways, but there's some things I want to share with you that I've picked up after going to several conferences and talking to leaders over the past year or so that I've started to piece together the puzzle that show some disruption that's coming. And I want to talk about that today. Before we do that, a couple of things I want to tell you about. First of all, if you want to systematize your business, then go to ConstructionBusinessAccelerator.com and sign up for the free Systematize Your Construction Business workshop that's going to be coming out soon. If it's not available right now, put your name on the list. But you're going to learn how to systematize your construction business. That's also going to get you on my email list so you'll know about other stuff that is coming out. Number two, if you're a frontline leader, project manager, superintendent, estimator, project executive, you're not a business owner, but you are passionate about leadership and you want to be part of a community of other like-minded frontline construction leaders, not software developers, not people in real estate development, not people in food service. Nothing wrong with those people. But if you want to be part of a community of like-minded leaders in the construction industry, then I am working on something and I need your help. So if that's you, send me an email, todd@constructionleadingedge.com, or I'll give you my number you can text me at in a few minutes. But send me an email and let me know you're interested in the Frontline Leader program, and I will keep you posted on that. Number three, if you are a construction business owner or if you are a leader and you're going to be in Vegas or you want to be in Vegas on January 20th, which is the day before the International Builders Show opens, I'm having a one-day advance for you. One day where you're going to get to spend in a room with a small group of other construction business owners and leaders, just like yourself. You're going to learn how to delegate better. You're going to learn about the root causes of the productivity problems, and you're going to walk out of there with some really practical, very powerful strategies you can use that will make your crews more productive and make your team operate at a higher level. You're also going to learn some strategies on how to sell more work at higher margins by understanding why people actually buy. Okay. Ryan, who attended one of my advances earlier this year, sent me a testimonial and he said, Todd's teaching on leadership is profound. And then he went on to talk about some of the sales strategies that he learned helped him to cancel his plans to hire 2 more salespeople. He learned some things at the advance that allowed him to cancel his plans to hire 2 more salespeople. He thought he needed to hire 2 more salespeople. It just turned out they needed to do some different things. So join me and a group of other like-minded construction business owners and leaders at the Advance in Las Vegas, January 20th. If you're a leader and you're going to be in Vegas for the Builder Show, come. You don't have to be a construction business owner. If you own a business and you're bringing your team out to Vegas, bring your leaders with you to this training. Several people have done that and are doing it at this event. They're going to bring their operations manager, their project manager, their superintendents. That way your team will be all speaking the same language. So go to ConstructionBusinessAccelerator.com/advance and grab your early bird seat. I've got some early bird seats that are available. A limited number available only for a limited time, but they're going to be gone soon, and the price goes up dramatically. You can grab an early bird seat and save enough money to pay for your airfare and probably your hotel for the whole Builder Show. But go to ConstructionBusinessAccelerator.com/advance, and that is accelerator with an A. Construction, ACCELERATOR, ConstructionBusinessAccelerator.com. Blockbuster.com/advance. Let's talk about Blockbuster and some of the lessons we can learn from it as it pertains to the disruption that's going on in the construction industry today. I don't spend much time on Twitter, and there are really only a couple of accounts that I check periodically and that I recommend to people. And one of them is the last Blockbuster. It is at Lone Blockbuster. That's their Twitter handle, and it's hilarious but also tragic at the same time. Here are a couple of things that they say, a couple of tweets on the last Blockbuster's Twitter page. We may not be financially rich, but we're rich in available parking spaces. Asking us why we don't have a streaming service is like asking PETA why they don't have a puppy hunting service. Okay. Yeah, and then there's quite a bit of inappropriateness that is really funny, but I'm not going to repeat it. One last one that's clean enough to put on the podcast. We're saddened to announce that the movie pumpkin carving contest is canceled due to the lack of creativity you all showed last year. So it's pretty snarky, pretty funny. But the tragic part is they're the last Blockbuster. Now, if you've been around for a while, you know that not too long ago, there were Blockbuster stores on every corner. And at one point, Blockbuster was doing $6 billion in sales, renting movies and all of that stuff in their stores. But there's only one Blockbuster that's left. And the lesson in that lone Blockbuster store is one that applies to the construction industry. So let's look at what customers are actually buying. At the most basic level, what is a customer buying? Well, a customer is somebody who makes an exchange of value with a service provider in return for a result with an experience, okay? A customer is someone who makes an exchange of value for a result with an experience. So think about the result that Blockbuster provided back in the year 2000. When you went to the store and you rented a movie, it provided basically the basic result at the most fundamental level was you had a movie on a screen that you got to watch. Okay, that was the result. Now let's look at the progression of the movie watching industry. Let's look at this. I've been around for a few years, and I can remember back in the 80s when we would go to the local movie store. This was before Blockbuster existed, and some of you may remember those pre-Blockbuster days. And in those days, you went to the movie store, and you rented a VHS tape. I even remember the other type of physical tape. It was a beta tape. Never really lasted, but there were VHS and beta tapes. And when I was a little kid, we didn't even have a VCR, so we rented a VCR. If we wanted to get wild and crazy on a weekend, we would rent a VCR and rent a few movies. And then there was always a sign on the counter that said something like, "Be kind, rewind." And if you didn't rewind your VHS tapes, then you would get charged a fee. Now, for some of you young folks who have never touched a VHS tape, that sounds crazy, sounds archaic. We didn't ride dinosaurs to the movie rental place, I can assure you, but that's just the way it was. So if you didn't have a VCR and you wanted to watch a movie, you went to the rental place, you rented a VCR, you rented your tapes, you made sure you rewound them, you put them back in the plastic case, and you drove them back to the store, put them in the night deposit box, or walked in. And if you didn't turn them back in time, you got charged multiple days' rent. You rented them by the day. Then as we progressed, we bought our own VCR. And then at least we didn't have to rent a VCR, but we still had to drive to the rental place, rent the VHS tapes, rewind the tapes, drive them back. And then not long after that, movies started coming out on different media. instead of VHS tapes, they were on DVDs and then Blu-ray. But there was still a physical piece of media that the movie was on. You still had to drive to Blockbuster, and at this point, Blockbuster started showing up on every corner, and you could drive to Blockbuster, pick out the DVD that you wanted, and drive back home, watch it on your DVD player, and then drive it back and return it. And then services like Netflix started showing up, where you still watched your movie on a DVD, but they would mail it to you. You still had the same result. And remember, that result was a movie on your screen of your TV. But the experience was changing. Netflix came on the scene, and no longer did we have to drive to the movie rental place. Our movies would show up in our mailbox. Now, the quality of the results started to get better with DVDs and Blu-rays, better quality. We didn't have to rewind it. The tapes were gone, and no longer did you have to worry about a damaged tape. They lasted longer, but if there was a specific movie you wanted, then you had to hope it was there. And if it was a new movie, you had to go wait in line, you had to show up, and then your movie, this sounds so archaic, but it's very possible that all of the movies would be rented out. All of the copies of that movie would be rented out, and you would have to wait to watch a movie. Even when Netflix came along and started mailing DVDs out, you still had to wait until that movie became available and came up in your queue. And then there was this revolution in the movie watching industry when Netflix developed streaming service. Suddenly, you still had the same result. You still had a movie on your screen in your home, but no longer did you have to wait until somebody mailed you a DVD. You didn't have to drive to the store. You didn't have to wait in line. You didn't have to hope it was available. You just needed an internet connection to get it on a screen at home. And at that point, you could watch Netflix on your laptop or on your computer. But then further developments came along, and services like Roku came along. And you could plug this little device into your TV and watch Netflix streaming movies on your TV. And then other services like the Fire Stick. You could plug it directly into a USB port or an HDMI port on your phone, or on your TV rather, connect through the internet and watch movies on your TV. No lines, no waiting, no envelopes, no waiting in the mail. And then smart TVs started coming along, and now they have Netflix and all of these other streaming services built into your TV. And then now it's not even just for movies, but you can watch all of your TV shows. If you're like the DeWalt household, you binge watch shows like Friends, and you've watched maybe all the episodes of Friends several times in the past couple of years, and your wife and your kids have binge watched every episode of Grey's Anatomy as well. So not only can you watch movies, but you can watch all the TV shows. And again, it's hard to believe for some of you folks who haven't been around quite as long, but back in the day, if you wanted to watch a TV show, you had to wait until it came on, and then you had to wait for the rerun. So here's the deal. Over the past 30 years, the movie watching industry has changed dramatically and was disrupted. It was revolutionized when services like Netflix came along and provided a better result with a completely different experience. The experience went from renting a VHS tape, rewinding the VHS tape, driving to the store, driving it back to the store, hoping that it was available, to suddenly you don't have to leave your house. You don't have to wait in line. You don't have to hope that it's there. The result is much better, and the experience is much better as well. Now, why do I talk about this? Because the construction industry is being disrupted right now, okay? And some of you are going to, in a few years, if you don't understand what's going on and you don't make some changes, you're going to get disrupted and you're going to end up like Blockbuster. Your business is going to end up being irrelevant. You're going to get left behind and you're going to be looking around wondering what the hell happened. Things were going so well. And I'll bet if you talked to Blockbuster back in the mid-2000s, $6 billion in sales, thousands of locations, everything was looking great, and then they got punched in the face by disruption. So let me talk about this disruption that is coming, and I'm going to share some examples of some of the things that I've heard from really influential people in the construction industry about what is coming down the pike, and this is very important. I'll talk mostly about the housing industry, just because there are some really good examples there, but the same thing is happening in all parts of the construction industry. Okay, my parents built a home when I was a little kid. This was the late 70s, probably. I don't remember much about it, but I remember seeing the process, and this is what the process looked like back in the late 70s or early 80s. If you wanted to build a home, you would find a home builder. You would give them a set of plans on a piece of paper. They would put together an estimate, give you a price on a piece of paper. You would sign a contract on a piece of paper. Then they would ship materials out to the job site. They would ship piles of lumber and plywood and pipe and rebar and shingles out to the job site, and it would be assembled there on the job site. The builder would submit an invoice to the client. The client would write them a paper check, hand it to them, mail it to them. They would have subcontractors, and typically the way the scheduling process worked was when the foundation guy got done, then you would call the plumber, and the plumber would come do the underground, and then when he was done, you would call the next guy, and then it was this serial fashion, very linear. When one guy gets done, the next guy comes in, and then the next guy comes in, and then the next guy comes in. It was very, very straightforward. Everything was done at the job site. Everything was done on paper, and there wasn't a lot. Now, fast forward to a few years ago, my parents built another home. Frankly, looking at the process, it wasn't much different. Maybe some of the materials have changed, but the process of keeping track of the information involved binders, lots of folders, lots of pieces of paper. One of the differences is now instead of letters or faxes, the information is in emails, texts, phone calls. Maybe inspirations are captured from Pinterest boards or Houzz or whatever. But frankly, the construction process hasn't changed that much over the past 40 years. The way homes are built is pretty much the same. Most foundations are cast in place at the job site. Most homes are framed from bundles of 2x and plywood. Maybe the floor joist materials have changed a little bit, and we're using more pre-engineered roof trusses and floor trusses and things like that. But for the most part, the sequence, the scheduling, the process of building a house hasn't changed all that much. And frankly, the process of how information is tracked, maybe it's in emails instead of notepads, but it's still kind of a chaotic process. And there's a huge opportunity to upgrade both the results that customers are getting and the experience that they're getting. Remember, your customers are making an exchange of value for a result with an experience. So there's the opportunity and really the requirement. If you want to compete, and not even compete, but to survive this disruption, then you need to provide a better quality home, all right? You need to provide a better result. And part of that result is a faster delivery. Projects are just taking too long, quite frankly. And then let's talk about the experience. This is something that's often overlooked, but your customers are demanding a better experience. They want a better experience with the design process. They want more opportunities and more time during the selection process. They want more transparency in the financials. They don't want to feel like they're stumbling through this process and getting rushed and feeling like they don't know what's going on in their project. They want transparency with changes, and they want a good experience not only through move-in but also through the entire warranty period. So there's a huge opportunity to upgrade, and really a requirement to upgrade the result and the experience that you're giving your clients. And just like with Blockbuster, Netflix didn't really change the result all that much, but what they really changed was the experience. Remember, the result for the movie watching industry was a movie on the screen of a TV in a home. What disrupted Blockbuster was the revolution that Netflix came along and eliminated parts of the experience that people hated. Driving to a store, standing in line, walking around, hoping that the movie was there. And your opportunity to not get disrupted and your opportunity to win in this during this disruption phase is really with the experience. So let's talk about what's going on at a macro level in the construction industry. After attending several conferences at Co-Construct and Procore and talking with leaders in the associated builders and contractors and listening to economists who are close to the housing industry and interviewing folks from all over the country and multiple countries, here are a few take-homes that you need to be aware of. And specific to the housing industry, right now there is a huge demand for housing. And in some cities, there are people moving in by the thousands every month into these cities, and there's not enough housing to keep up with the demand. So demand is exceeding supply. And according to some economists who study the housing industry, they expect this nationwide demand for housing to exceed the supply for the next 4 years. Okay, so that's factor number one. There's a huge demand for housing. Factor number two is there's an incredible amount of cash on the sidelines. Lots of venture capital, lots of private equity, lots of dry powder, if you will, sitting on the sidelines, not making great returns. And we're starting to see more and more of that private equity and venture capital going into the construction industry. A couple of statistics. In 2016, there was about $350 million invested in the construction industry, in software and manufacturing. So 2016, $350 million. All right, 2017, it jumped up to about $3 billion. In 2018, the amount jumped up to $6 billion. So from 2016 to 2018, it went from $350 million of investment to $6 billion. When there's a huge demand, all right, this is how capitalism works. When there's a demand, when there's a delta between demand and supply, it draws capital in, just like if you are creating a vacuum in a space. It pulls things in. It's like having negative pressure in your house, if you will. It draws things in. So if there's a strong enough delta between demand and supply in a specific industry, there's all this capital, there are people who want to make money, and they make money by solving that delta between demand and supply. And we can see it. $6 billion invested in the construction industry in 2018, and there's more coming in every year. Something else, I spoke with a president of a local associated builders and contractors chapter who attended a conference with project owners, big project owners who are deploying billions of dollars of capital. These are hotel developers and Fortune 50 companies that have huge capital expenditure programs, capital construction programs. And here's what they said. Their takeaways or their mandates were, and their statements to the construction industry included projects are taking too long and there's too much waste. We want project schedules to be cut in half, and we expect project costs to be cut dramatically. Too much waste and it's taking too long. So big project owners are mandating things like fully integrated offsite, modular. We're seeing large hotel developers making statements that 25% of our new construction projects will be modular. So it's being pushed from the owner's side. We have billions of dollars of capital moving into the space, and all of which are trying to solve that delta between demand and supply. So what does this mean to you? Remember, your customers are making an exchange of value for a result with an experience. So you have to provide the best possible result you can, because other people are getting into the business. People who haven't traditionally been home builders or contractors are moving into the space, and if you don't provide a great experience, they're going to find somebody who will. If you don't provide a great result, they're going to find somebody who will. So you have to take advantage of the top of the line, cutting edge products. You have to understand building science. You have to make sure that the quality of your finished product, that you're providing the best possible results you can. You also need to cut your schedule. It's coming to a point where people are going to say, this is ridiculous. It used to take 4 months to build a home. Now you're telling me it's going to take 10? That's not going to work. We're going to do something else. And let me talk about non-residential for a minute. Let me explain how this is working. I spent several years building large distribution centers, 650,000 square foot distribution centers. And the way these deals were put together, a developer would say, I'm going to deploy $25 million to buy the land, build this building, and then I'm going to lease it to some third-party logistics company or a furniture store, or in what's growing now would be e-commerce retailers. And there are economic realities that have to be met. And as building costs escalate, as construction costs go up, they're approaching a point at which the real estate deals don't make sense. Okay, as construction costs continue to increase, they're approaching a point where the developers, well, ultimately the tenants who want to lease those spaces or buy those buildings are saying, it doesn't make sense for us. That's not the best return on investment. So in the case of a distribution center, let's say there's a furniture store who has a 250,000 square foot distribution center, and they're thinking about expanding into a 400,000 square foot distribution center. But the construction costs are driving the lease rate up to a point where it doesn't make sense. In that case, they're going to invest that money into some sort of material handling system, or they're going to figure out how can we better utilize the space we have. They're still going to invest in their business, but they're going to invest their capital where they can get the best ROI. And as construction costs increase, it's approaching a point where moving into a new space becomes so expensive, it's no longer a good ROI. And they're going to deploy their capital elsewhere. And what that means in the distribution center world is it's very possible that people get excited and there's millions of square feet of supply out in the market. Then tenants and building owners are going to say, pass, it's too expensive, we're going to invest elsewhere. So back to the housing industry. Let's talk about the experience, all right? And actually, this applies to all of you. Whether you're working with residential clients, commercial clients, government entities, industrial clients, whomever you're working with, let's talk about the experience. Remember, you're providing a result, a finished product, scope, schedule, budget, quality, etc. But you're also providing an experience. And people want a good experience. They don't want a chaotic experience. They don't want to feel like they're looking at their project through a keyhole or through a peephole where they don't have visibility and they don't have transparency and they don't know what's going on and they're constantly getting surprised by changes. They want a good experience. And that means you have to have good systems in place. Systems that will help you lead them through their project, going all the way back before it's really your job. Okay? It also means that you're going to help them through the design process. You're going to help them through the selections or the submittal process. You're going to communicate with them all the way through the process so they know what's going on. They know what they need to do. They know what's coming up. They know what's being done, and they don't feel like they're getting surprised. So regardless of where you're at, if you want to maintain your position in the industry, if you don't want to get unseated by some of these new players that are coming in, or if you want to get a better position in your market and unseat some of those incumbent providers, some of the people who've been doing it the same old way for the last 30 or 40 years, focus first on the experience. This is often overlooked. Make sure you're giving your people, your customers, make sure you're pushing this down through your organization. That guys and gals, we're not just about getting sticks and bricks put together. We're about providing a good customer experience. And that means putting some focus on how your customers feel. All right? So the building industry, the construction industry is getting disrupted. Billions of dollars are being invested. I don't want you to get punched in the face. I don't want you to be like the lone Blockbuster. I don't want you to be standing there saying, what happened? Everything was great a couple of years ago. We've been doing it the same way as we always have. I don't want people to go to your Twitter page and be amused by the tragedy that was your fall from greatness. So here's my challenge to you. 2 challenges. Number 1, find one way that you can improve the result that you are providing, whether that be in quality or in schedule. How can you reduce waste? How can you reduce the time it takes for you to deliver your projects? But what can you do to improve the result? Maybe it's some new materials, new products, whatever the case may be. Number 1, I challenge you to come up with one way you can improve the result that you are providing your customers. And number 2, I would challenge you to come up with one way to improve the experience that your customers are having. How can you give them a better experience? And I'm telling you, one of the best places to start would be with the system that you are using. You need a consolidated system that keeps track of information, financials, specs, selections, submittals, questions, changes, invoices, change orders, whatever the case may be. You need one consolidated piece of software in most cases, but one consolidated system where it's all in one place. And if you need some help with that, if you're looking for some recommendations, then I've spent the last year vetting out software companies to find out who are the best out there for small construction businesses. So I've got a few that I have vetted out personally, and if you would like some recommendations, then I want you to send me an email, todd@constructionleadingedge.com. Let me know what type of work you're doing. Tell me you're looking for software, and then I can make some recommendations. If you're listening to this and if a text message would be simpler for you, then send me a text, 859-667-2015. If you have questions about the Construction Business Accelerator or the Systematize Your Construction Business training, you can send me a text about that. If you want information about the advance in Vegas on January 20th, and you're like, man, I can't look it up right now, but I can send a text, send me a text, 859-667-2015. Put the word advance in there, and I'll send you the link. And as always, thank you so much for the ratings and the reviews. If you get value out of this podcast, if you could go to the podcast player of your choice Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, whatever you're listening to this podcast on, and take a couple of minutes and leave a rating and a review. That would be fantastic. That helps get the podcast out to more and more people. And if you could share it with somebody, if this episode needs to be in the earbuds of somebody you know, then send them a text, tell them, hey, check out this episode of the Construction Leading Edge podcast, and I would appreciate it. So thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.